You have 40 years in one house, and 48 hours to leave it. 3 bedrooms, 2 closets you haven't opened since the funeral, a garage with something stacked against the door so it only swings halfway open, and you are standing in the middle of all of it, holding one chipped cup. You know you should probably let it go, but you can't decide. That is where decluttering stops for most people. Not at the boxes, not at the furniture. At one cup in your hand for 20 minutes, while the light disappears from the window. I watched a 73-year-old woman spend 2 years unable to make decisions about the house she could no longer walk through comfortably. She wasn't lazy, she wasn't careless. She was simply overwhelmed by 40 years of decisions. Then something changed. She cleared the entire house in 48 hours. No storage unit. No expensive organizer. No truckload of plastic containers. Just 7 rules. And the 4th one revealed something about clutter that she had never considered before. Before we begin, do something very simple. Go and open the drawer you've been avoiding. Don't empty it. Just look inside. Count the things you haven't touched in a year. That number tells you something. The problem isn't that you don't know how to clean. The problem is that every object is asking you to make a decision. And that gets exhausting. You don't need a free weekend for this. You don't need a strong back. You don't need a grown child flying across the country to stand in your kitchen and sigh. You're going to work for 10 minutes at a time. Then you're going to sit down. Make tea. Drink it sitting down. Look out the window. Then do another 10 minutes. That woman discovered that when she stopped treating decluttering like a marathon, she could finally finish it. And somewhere in the middle of these 7 rules, I'll tell you exactly who quietly profits when you keep every single thing you own. There's another idea I want you to keep in mind. I call it the legacy box. It's not a product, it's a habit. 1 box, 1 shelf, for the handful of things worth carrying forward. Your mother's handwritten recipe, the photograph that actually tells a story, the letter you could never replace, the objects that matter. Not every memory needs an entire closet. Because here's what almost everybody gets wrong. You think clutter is a stuff problem. It isn't. It's a decision problem. Lifting a box costs you almost nothing. Deciding what should happen to everything inside that box can cost you everything. That woman spent 2 years surrounded by things because she was out of deciding. These 7 rules were designed to protect the small amount of decision-making energy she had and spend it only where it mattered. Rule 1. The triage. The first rule is the triage. It's borrowed from the emergency room, and it's deliberately simple. A doctor in a crisis doesn't give equal time to every patient. You shouldn't give equal time to every possession. Start with 15 minutes per room, not 15 minutes per drawer, per room. Walk through the room and mentally put everything into 3 categories. Category 1. Cannot live without it. Medicines, important documents, your birth certificate, the cup you actually drink from every morning. Category 2. Might need it someday. Category 3. Haven't touched it in over a year. And here's the ruthless part. Category 2 gets treated almost exactly like Category 3. Because might need it someday is usually fear talking. And fear can keep you surrounded by boxes for the rest of your life. You're giving yourself permission to be wrong about 4 or 5 objects, rather than staying trapped by 4,000 decisions. Start in the kitchen, because necessity is obvious there. That woman found 23 coffee mugs. She drinks tea now. 3 complete sets of china sat unused since her daughter's wedding in 1987. There were enough gadgets to stock a small restaurant, including a bread maker she'd used exactly twice in 10 years. She kept 2 mugs. 2. The china went. Most of the gadgets went. And suddenly the kitchen had room to breathe. That's what good triage looks like. You're walking through the room and pointing. This stays. This goes. This stays. Bad triage looks like sitting cross-legged on the floor with a photograph in your lap at 4 in the afternoon, having done nothing since noon. By the 3rd room, she was faster, not slower. That's how she knew it was working. In the living room, she found 47 decorative cushions in a house with seating for 6. 12 throw blankets in a home she kept at 75 degrees. Enough candles for a cathedral, even though she never lit them because she was afraid of an unattended flame. None of it had been deliberately chosen. It had simply accumulated. Quick question for you in the comments. How many coffee mugs do you actually own right now? Guess before you count. Then tell me whether you were close. I read every single comment. Rule 2. The 10-minute timer. The second rule is the 10-minute timer. And this time, the stopping is just as important as the sorting. Choose one small area, one shelf, one kitchen drawer, one cabinet underneath the bathroom sink. Set the timer for 10 minutes. When it rings, stop. Even if you're not finished, especially if you're not finished. Why? Because 10 minutes is short enough that you can't build a whole argument for keeping something. You have to trust your first reaction. And your first reaction is often honest. It knows the difference between something you use and something you're keeping out of guilt. She started with her bedroom dresser. 10 minutes. Expired medicines from 1998. 17 pens that no longer wrote. Christmas cards from people she could no longer place. Instruction manuals for machines she'd thrown away years earlier. Enough loose buttons to open a shop. One full bag came out of that drawer, and she discovered she'd forgotten the drawer even had a bottom. But the real genius was the stopping. She stopped while she still felt clear. So she wanted to come back. That's the opposite of what usually happens. People push themselves until they're exhausted, emotional, and angry. Then they avoid the room for another 6 months. She worked for 10 minutes and rested for 10. She made tea, she sat. Then she went back. On her first day, she completed 24 10-minute sessions. 4 hours of actual work. Not 4 hours of exhaustion. 4 hours of decisions. And she went to bed feeling lighter than when she'd woken up. 10 minutes is doable when your body gets tired. It is doable when bending hurts. It is doable when you don't have the energy you had 30 years ago. You aren't agreeing to clean the whole house. You're agreeing to one drawer. Rule 3. The stranger. The third rule sounds harsh, but it may be the kindest of all 7. Imagine you're gone. Now imagine a stranger is walking through your house. Not your children, not your sister, a stranger. They pick up an object and ask, "Why did she keep this?" Would they understand? Or would they simply think, "This woman kept everything"? That one question removes a surprising amount of emotional weight. Magazines from 2003? The stranger recycles them without hesitation. 47 candles you've never lit? The stranger gives them to someone who actually uses candles. But then you reach the hard things, the things that make people stop. She had boxes filled with her children's school drawings. 200 crayon pictures. Would a stranger keep all 200? No. So she kept 10. The 10 that actually looked like her children. The ones with their handwriting. The one with the peculiar dog. The rest went. And what surprised her wasn't sadness. It was relief. Photographs were the same. 23 albums filled with blurry holidays, duplicates, and people she could no longer name. She turned 23 albums into 3. 3 albums that actually told the story. And she realized something. She had never once looked through all 23. This is where the legacy box became important. Not every keepsake needs an entire closet. The 10 things that truly matter can live together in one honest box, instead of being buried beneath 200 things that don't. Her clothes went the same way. Dresses from her teaching years. Unworn for 15 years. They belonged to a life she no longer lived. She gave them to young teachers just starting out. Then came 300 books. Romance novels, computer manuals for machines that no longer existed, diet books from the 1980s, books she'd read once and would never read again. Keeping a book you'll never reopen is only hoarding with an education attached to it. If this rule is landing for you, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to hear it today. Rule 4. The replacement check. The fourth rule was the one that changed the way she thought about money, scarcity, and clutter. The replacement check. It answers the fear almost everybody has. What if I need this someday? Ask 3 questions. If I needed this exact thing tomorrow, could I get another one? What would it actually cost me to replace? And in the last 5 years, how many times have I really needed it? She found 12 screwdrivers scattered through 4 drawers. 12. Could she get another screwdriver if she needed one? Of course. Could a neighbor lend her one? Probably. How much would replacing one cost? A few dollars. How many times had she needed 12 screwdrivers at once in the last 5 years? None. She kept one good screwdriver. Do you see the arithmetic? She had been paying every day in space, dust, mental noise, and frustration to avoid perhaps spending $15 once in a decade. That isn't thrift, it's the opposite. Craft supplies followed the same rule. Yarn for sweaters she'd never started. Fabric for sewing she no longer enjoyed. Paint that had dried in the tube decades ago. If she took up watercolor again, fresh paint would serve her better than old paint. Those supplies weren't preserving an opportunity. They were occupying a room. Then came the dining chairs stored in the basement for the big dinner she might someday host. She hadn't seated more than 4 people in 8 years. If she ever needed extra chairs, they could be rented. The bread maker she'd used twice could be replaced. The juicer from the health kick of 2015 could be replaced. Meanwhile, both sat on the kitchen counter every morning, making the kitchen feel smaller. And then she noticed something uncomfortable. A lot of businesses make money helping us store what we don't use. Storage companies charge us every month to keep rooms full of things we rarely visit. Organizer companies sell boxes, labels, and shelves to hold the things we already don't use. But fewer things don't need another container. An empty shelf doesn't need a label. Sometimes the simplest solution is also the one nobody can sell you: letting go. Rule 5. The energy scale. The 5th rule is the energy scale. Stop treating every object as equally important. They aren't, and pretending they are is exhausting. Give each object a number from 1 to 10, not for monetary value, for emotional and practical importance. A 1 gets almost no decision-making energy. A 10 gets your attention. Romance novels read once? 1. Straight to the donation box. Her husband's technical manuals? 3. 30 seconds. The children might want them. Tape the box. Done. Her grandmother's handwritten cookbook, with recipes written in fading pencil? 9. That deserved care. She cleaned it, protected it, and gave it a place on the kitchen shelf where she could reach it easily. The bedroom closet made the point perfectly. 67 garments in a space designed for 30. She wore 12. Most were 1s, 2s, and 3s. They left without a long debate. The 12 she loved rated 8 or higher. Those received good hangers and actual space around them. The whole thing took 45 minutes. She had been dreading an entire weekend. Then she noticed something that bothered her. The objects she'd spent the most emotional energy worrying about were often the objects nobody looked at. Meanwhile, the functional problems she'd ignored for years were still there. The sticking drawer. The cupboard she had to brace herself to open. The garage worked the same way. Garden tools for a garden her hands no longer allowed her to maintain. Camping equipment for trips she no longer took. Sporting equipment for a body she no longer had. Most of it was rated 1 or 2, and 80% of that garage disappeared because she refused to spend emotional energy on it. Even paperwork became easier. Old tax records were low priority. Important insurance policies were high priority. The point wasn't to throw everything away. The point was to stop giving everything the same amount of your life. Rule 6. The future self. The 6th rule changed her more than any other. The future self. Most people declutter while looking backward. They see what something meant, who they were when they bought it, who gave it to them, what life looked like then. She turned the question around. Does this serve the woman I am becoming, or is it anchoring me to a life that's already finished? That question changed the closet. Her business suits were the hardest. 30 years of work were hanging in those shoulders. But her future looked different. She wanted to volunteer at the animal shelter. She wanted to take a watercolor class. She wanted to travel to places she'd never had time to see. The suits weren't honoring her career anymore. Her career was already complete. They were simply hanging there. Then she transformed the craft room. The dusty sewing machine went. The mountains of fabric went. They belonged to a hobby she'd lost interest in a decade earlier. In their place came an easel, good paper, real brushes, and daylight from a window that had been blocked by boxes for 11 years. But then she reached the hardest room. Her husband's belongings. Nobody prepares you for this part. She realized that keeping everything exactly as he'd left it wasn't necessarily honoring him. It had become a shrine, and she was living inside it. So she kept what brought comfort when she held it. She released what only brought pain, and she remembered something simple. He would have wanted her to live in the house. not guard it. You are not betraying your past by making room. You are allowed to become someone else at 73. That isn't a small permission. For many people, it's the whole point. Rule 7. Do it properly. The 7th rule is the one that makes the other 6 stick. Do it properly. Say goodbye. Not by sneaking bags into the car after dark. Not by pretending the object never mattered. Stop. Hold it. Remember what it meant. Then release it. She did this with her favorite suit. 10 minutes holding it, remembering the promotion, the difficult negotiation she'd won, the people she'd led. Then she donated it to a charity that helped women preparing for their first interviews. She did the same with her books. She wrote little notes inside some of them. Thank you for teaching me about leadership. This one helped me through a bad winter. 2 strangers eventually wrote back after finding those books. The photographs received the same treatment. She thanked each batch for holding the memories. Then she let them go. Because the memory lived in her, not inside a cardboard box. For her children's drawings, she photographed every picture she wasn't keeping. Then she created a digital album. Her children cried when they saw it. They suddenly had more of their childhood than they'd ever had before. And it took up no floor space. Even broken things received a proper goodbye. The sweater that had kept her warm for 30 winters went to textile recycling. Her mother's mixing bowls, which had helped make thousands of family meals, went to a young neighbor learning to cook. The wedding china was held one last time, remembered, and given to a family who would use it for their own holidays. Dozens of tiny ceremonies, all in 2 days. Not sentimental, practical. Each goodbye closed the door properly. And because the door was closed properly, she didn't keep going back to rescue what she'd already released. The truck arrived at the 48-hour mark. She stood in the doorway wearing her coat. 12 truckloads had gone to families who needed them. Nothing was rented. Nothing was put into storage. And she hadn't bought a single plastic box. 3 months later, she called me from her new apartment. She said something I'll never forget. She thought she had been clearing out a house. But she had actually been clearing out her life for the next part of it. She teaches an art class at the Senior Center now, and the woman who once couldn't decide about a chipped cup now has a home where she can walk from one room to another without thinking about what needs to be moved first. That's the part of decluttering nobody talks about enough. You're not just removing things, you're making room for the person who still has time to become. Tell me in the comments which of these 7 rules you'd never heard before today. And tell me the one drawer you're going to open tonight. I read every single one. If this helped you see your own house a little differently, do 3 things for me. Save this video so you can come back to the rule you need. Share it with the one person you know who is standing in the middle of a house exactly like this one, holding a cup they can't put down. And subscribe so you're here for the next one, because next time I'll show you exactly what belongs in your legacy box, what doesn't belong there, and how to decide when something is truly worth carrying forward. Until then, waste nothing. Take care of your home, and it will take care of you.